Dr. Lisa Kane walked into her lab on Mars Base 7 at 6 in the morning. The red planet's sun was just coming up over the metal buildings of the colony. She had been working here for 3 years, studying alien life forms that the mining ships brought back from deep space. Most days were boring. She looked at rocks and dirt samples. Sometimes she found simple bacteria or strange crystals. Nothing too exciting. But today was different. A metal box sat on her desk. It was silver and had warning labels all over it. The box was cold to touch and made a soft humming sound. Lisa checked the delivery papers. It came from mining ship Delta 7, which had been working near the edge of known space. Strange, she said to herself. They usually don't find anything interesting out there. Lisa put on her safety gloves and opened the box. Inside was a smaller container made of clear glass, and inside that container was something that made her heart race. It was a hand, but not a human hand. The hand was longer than a human hand, with 6 fingers instead of 5. The skin was pale gray with small patches that glowed with soft blue light. The fingers ended in what looked like claws, but they were smooth and curved, like they were made for delicate work. Lisa had never seen anything like it. In all her years studying alien life, she had only found simple organisms. This was from a creature that was clearly intelligent. The hand was cut off cleanly at the wrist, as if something had sliced through it with a laser. She read the report that came with the hand. The mining crew had found it floating in space inside a piece of wreckage. The metal around it was twisted and burned, like it had been in an explosion. There were no other body parts. Just this one hand, perfectly preserved. In some kind of stasis field, Lisa ran her first tests. The hand was definitely from a living creature, but the cells were unlike anything in human biology. They seemed to store energy in a way that was impossible according to Earth science. Even stranger, the neural pathways in the hand were still active. Somehow there were still electrical signals running through the dead tissue. "This is incredible," she whispered as she looked at the test results. She spent the whole day running more tests. Each one showed something new and amazing. The hand belonged to a species that was far more advanced than humans. Their biology was completely different, but in some ways it was also familiar. The bone structure was similar to human hands, just bigger and with an extra finger. As evening came, Lisa realized she had a problem. Protocol said she had to report major discoveries to the colony commander right away. But she knew what would happen if she did that. The military would take the hand away from her. They would study it as a weapon instead of learning about the creature it came from. She decided to keep working on it alone, at least for now. At 10 o'clock at night, Lisa heard footsteps in the hallway outside her lab. She quickly covered the hand and pretended to work on normal samples. The door opened and Jake Murphy walked in with his cleaning cart. Jake was the night janitor. He was in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been working at the base for 2 years, but most of the scientists barely noticed him. He was just the guy who emptied the trash and mopped the floors. "Evening, Doc," Jake said with a smile. "Working late again?" "Just finishing up some tests," Lisa replied, trying to sound casual. Jake began cleaning the lab, moving quietly around her workspace. He was always careful not to disturb her equipment. Lisa watched him work and noticed something. Jake was observant. His eyes took in details that other people missed. When he cleaned, he noticed if equipment was moved or if something was different. "You know, Doc," Jake said as he emptied her trash bin, "I've been cleaning labs for 20 years back on Earth. And now here, I can tell when a scientist has found something big. You get this look in your eyes like you've seen a miracle." Lisa felt her face turn red. "What do you mean?" Jake smiled. "Don't worry. I don't ask questions about your work. But if you need anything, extra time without interruptions, someone to watch the door, or just a fresh cup of coffee, you let me know." After Jake left, Lisa sat in her chair and thought. She had been so focused on keeping her discovery secret from the military that she hadn't thought about who might actually help her. Jake seemed trustworthy. More than that, he seemed to genuinely care about the scientist and their work. Lisa made a decision. She would continue studying the hand in secret, but she would be more careful. And maybe if she needed help, Jake Murphy might be someone she could trust. She uncovered the hand again and began her evening tests. As she worked, she noticed something new. The glowing patches on the hand were pulsing in a pattern. It was very slow and faint, but it was definitely a pattern. Almost like a heartbeat, but more complex. "What are you trying to tell me?" she whispered to the hand. The hand, of course, didn't answer, but as Lisa watched the pulsing lights, she felt like she was looking at something incredible. This wasn't just a piece of an alien creature. This was a message from another world, waiting for someone smart enough to understand it. She had no idea that her decision to study the hand would change everything. She didn't know that in a few months, she would bring an alien girl back to life. And she certainly didn't know that a janitor named Jake Murphy would become the most important person in the galaxy's first peaceful contact between humans and aliens. All she knew was that she had found something amazing, and she was going to do everything she could to learn its secrets. 3 months had passed since Lisa first found the alien hand. Every night she worked alone in her lab, trying to understand its secrets. The tests showed something impossible. The hand contained a complete genetic blueprint for an entire alien being. Not just the body, but somehow the memories and personality too. Lisa had never seen anything like it. Human DNA only contained information about the body. But this alien DNA was different. It held patterns that looked like stored thoughts and experiences. It was as if the creature's entire mind had been saved in its genetic code. The discovery changed everything. Lisa realized she might be able to rebuild the alien using the information stored in the hand. It would be like bringing someone back from the dead, but using the most advanced technology humans had ever created. She started working on a plan. The Mars base had experimental equipment for growing organs and tissues. It was meant for helping colonists who got injured in accidents. But Lisa thought she could modify it to grow an entirely new body. The work was dangerous and required equipment she wasn't supposed to use. She had to sneak into other labs at night to borrow machines. She had to steal chemicals and biological materials. Every day she worried that someone would discover what she was doing. That's when Jake Murphy became more than just a janitor to her. Jake noticed that Lisa was staying later and later. He saw her moving equipment between labs. He watched her throw away unusual waste materials, but instead of reporting her, he started helping. "Doc, you know the security patrol comes through at 2 in the morning, Jake would say. "Maybe you should take a break then." Or he would leave fresh coffee outside her lab door. Sometimes he would clean the other labs first, giving her more time alone with her work. One night, Lisa was struggling to move a heavy machine. Jake appeared beside her without being asked. "Let me help with that," he said quietly. "Jake, you shouldn't get involved. If they find out what I'm doing..." "Doc, I've been watching you work for 3 months. I don't know what you're building, but I can tell it's important. And I can tell you're trying to help someone." Jake helped her move the machine. He didn't ask questions about what it was for. He just helped. From that night on, he became her unofficial assistant. Lisa learned that Jake was much smarter than people gave him credit for. He had studied engineering before becoming a janitor. He understood how the lab equipment worked. More importantly, he had practical skills that Lisa lacked. He could fix machines when they broke. He could solve problems that would take Lisa hours to figure out. The reconstruction process was slow and careful. Lisa started by using the genetic information to grow basic tissue samples. Then she worked on building organs: heart, lungs, brain. Each piece had to be perfect, or the whole project would fail. The hardest part was the nervous system. The alien's brain was different from a human brain. It was larger and had areas that humans didn't have. Lisa had to study the patterns in the original hand to understand how the alien's mind worked. Jake watched her struggle with the brain development for weeks. One night, he made a suggestion that surprised her. "Doc, what if you're thinking about this wrong? You're trying to build a brain like a machine, but what if it's more like growing a garden?" "What do you mean?" "When I grew up on a farm, we learned that plants grow better when you create the right environment, not when you try to control every detail. Maybe this alien brain needs the right conditions to grow naturally." Lisa thought about Jake's words. She realized he was right. She had been trying to force the brain to develop in a specific way. But maybe she needed to create the right environment and let the alien's genetic programming do the work. She changed her approach. Instead of trying to control every aspect of brain growth, she focused on creating the perfect conditions. She adjusted temperature, nutrients, and electrical fields. To match what the genetic code seemed to want, it worked. The brain began developing naturally, following patterns that were encoded in the alien DNA. Week by week, the reconstruction grew more complete. The body took shape slowly. It was clearly not human, but it was beautiful in its own way. The skin was pale gray with those same glowing patches that had been on the hand. The body was tall and thin with long arms and legs. The face was human-like, but with larger eyes and a smaller nose. Jake was the first to point out something that Lisa had missed. "Doc, I think it's a girl." He was right. The body shape and features suggested a young female, probably the equivalent of a human in her early 20s. As the reconstruction neared completion, both Lisa and Jake began to understand what they had done. They weren't just building a body, they were bringing a person back to life. Someone who had thoughts, feelings, and memories. Someone who had lost everything when her ship was destroyed. "What if she doesn't want to be here?" Jake asked one night, as they watched the body in its growth chamber. "What do you mean?" "Think about it, Doc. The last thing she remembers is probably her ship exploding and her people dying. Now she's going to wake up alone, surrounded by aliens who don't speak her language. That's got to be terrifying." Lisa hadn't thought about it that way. She had been so focused on the scientific challenge that she hadn't considered the person they were creating. What would it be like to wake up in a completely alien world, with no way to go home? "Maybe we should stop," Lisa said quietly. Jake shook his head. "No, Doc, we've come too far, but we need to be ready for her. We need to make sure the first thing she sees is kindness, not fear." Jake started preparing for the alien girl's awakening. He researched human psychology and trauma recovery. He gathered pictures and objects that might help her understand where she was. He even practiced speaking in soft, calm tones that might be less frightening to someone who had never heard human voices. Lisa continued working on the final stages of reconstruction. The neural integration was the most delicate part. She had to connect the grown brain to the stored memories and personality from the original hand. One mistake could destroy the alien's mind completely. The night before the awakening, Jake and Lisa sat in the lab looking at the completed body in its chamber. "You know, Doc, I've been thinking about something," Jake said. "What if this changes everything? What if she's the first of her people to meet humans? We might be starting the most important relationship in history." "Are you scared?" Lisa asked. Jake smiled, terrified, but also excited. "I mean, we're about to meet someone from another world. How many people get to do that?" Lisa nodded. Tomorrow they would activate the final sequence and bring the alien girl to consciousness. They had no idea if it would work. They had no idea if she would be grateful or angry. They had no idea if she would trust them or fear them. All they knew was that they had done everything they could to give her a chance at a new life. Now it was up to her to decide what to do with it. The reconstruction was complete. Tomorrow, everything would change. The awakening happened at 3 a.m. Lisa had programmed the final sequence to start when the base was quiet and most people were asleep. She and Jake stood nervously beside the reconstruction chamber, watching as the liquid inside began to drain away. The alien girl's eyes opened suddenly. They were large and completely black with no visible pupils. She gasped and sat up quickly, looking around the lab with obvious panic. Her skin flashed through different colors, from pale gray to bright blue to deep purple. The glowing patches on her arms and face pulsed rapidly. She tried to speak, but the sounds that came out were unlike anything human. They were musical, like a combination of singing and electronic tones. The sounds made the lab equipment vibrate and some of the lights flicker. Lisa stepped forward carefully. "It's okay," she said in a calm voice. "You're safe." But the alien girl didn't understand. She scrambled backward in the chamber, pressing herself against the far wall. Her black eyes darted between Lisa and Jake, clearly seeing them as threats. The color-changing patterns on her skin became more frantic. Lisa tried to approach again, holding up her hands to show she meant no harm. But every step she took made the alien girl more frightened. The musical sounds became higher and more desperate. "Lisa, stop," Jake said quietly. "You're scaring her more. But I need to check her vital signs, make sure the reconstruction worked properly." "The reconstruction worked fine. Look at her, she's awake, she's moving, she's thinking. Right now she needs comfort, not medical tests." Jake slowly sat down on the floor about 10 feet away from the chamber. He didn't try to get closer. He just sat there calmly, his hands visible and empty. He began speaking in a soft, gentle voice. "Hey there," he said. "I know you're scared. I would be scared too if I woke up in a strange place with strange people around me." The alien girl stopped making the musical sounds. She was still pressed against the wall, but she seemed to be listening. "My name is Jake," he continued. "The lady over there is Lisa. We're not going to hurt you. We want to help." Jake reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out a water bottle. He took a small sip, then set it on the floor between them. "You might be thirsty. This is water. It's safe to drink." The alien girl watched everything Jake did. Her skin colors were still changing, but not as frantically as before. The glowing patches had slowed their pulsing. Lisa started to move forward, again, but Jake held up his hand to stop her. "Let her come to us," he whispered. "Don't force it." They waited. For almost an hour they just sat there while the alien girl studied them. Slowly, very slowly, she began to relax. Her skin settled into a pale silver color. The glowing patches became a steady, soft blue. Finally she moved. She climbed carefully out of the chamber and crept toward the water bottle. Her movements were graceful but cautious, like a wild animal approaching food. She picked up the bottle and examined it, turning it around in her long fingers. Jake demonstrated how to open it and drink. The alien girl copied his movements and took a small sip. She made a sound that might have been surprise or pleasure. "Good," Jake said with a smile. "That's good." Over the next few hours, Jake continued his patient approach. He showed the alien girl pictures on a tablet computer, images of Earth, of space, of the Mars colony. He spoke constantly in his calm, friendly voice, explaining what each picture showed. The alien girl began to understand that these were not the creatures who had destroyed her ship. These beings were different. They moved slowly and carefully. They showed her things instead of taking things from her. Most importantly, they didn't try to force her to do anything. Lisa watched Jake work and realized something important. Her scientific training had taught her to study and analyze. But Jake understood something she had missed. The alien girl wasn't a specimen to be studied. She was a person who had lost everything and was terrified of losing more. When the alien girl finally spoke again, it was to Jake. Her voice still had that musical quality, but now it formed sounds that were almost like human words. "You," she said carefully, the word distorted but recognizable. "You, not hurt?" "No," Jake said gently. "We will not hurt you. We want to help you." The alien girl pointed to herself. She made several musical sounds, then tried to translate. Jithes. "That's your name?" Jake asked. "Jithes." She nodded, then made a gesture that seemed frustrated. She pointed at Jake, then at herself, then made complicated hand movements. "I think she's trying to tell us something about names," Lisa said quietly. Jake thought for a moment. "Jithes, would you like a human name too? Something easier for us to say?" The alien girl tilted her head, considering. She pointed at Jake and made a questioning sound. "My name is Jake," he said clearly. "Jake." "Jake," she repeated, the musical tones making his name sound beautiful. Then she pointed at herself and seemed to think. She looked around the lab, her large black eyes taking in everything. Finally, she pointed to herself and said, "Amy? Amy?" Jake smiled. "That's a beautiful name. Amy." From that moment, She became Amy to them. But Lisa noticed something significant. Amy had chosen to give herself a human name. It suggested that she wanted to connect with them, to be part of their world. Over the following days, Amy's trust in Jake grew stronger. She would accept food and water from him. She let him show her around the lab. She even began trying to communicate more complex ideas. But with Lisa, Amy remained distant. She would tolerate Lisa's presence because Jake trusted her, but she clearly preferred Jake's company. Lisa finally understood why. Jake approached Amy as an equal, despite her alien appearance. He talked to her like a person, not like a scientific discovery. He shared stories about his own life, making their relationship mutual instead of one-sided. Amy was incredibly intelligent. Within days, she was picking up human language with amazing speed. She learned not just words, but concepts and emotions. She understood that she was on a planet called Mars, far from her home. She understood that her people were gone, and that Jake and Lisa had somehow brought her back to life. Instead of being angry about being reconstructed without her permission, Amy seemed grateful. Through her growing English vocabulary, she explained that her people believed consciousness was sacred. The fact that Jake and Lisa had worked so hard to preserve and restore her consciousness was, to her, a great honor. But Amy also made something clear to both Jake and Lisa. She could sense that they were hiding her existence from others. She understood that her presence was dangerous for them, and she was worried about what would happen when the secret came out. "Other humans," she said one evening as the three of them sat in the lab. "They fear me?" Jake was honest with her. "Some will. Some will be excited to meet you. Some will want to study you. Some will want to use you as a weapon." Amy's skin shifted to a dark purple color that Jake had learned meant sadness or worry. "I bring trouble to Jake and Lisa." "No," Lisa said firmly. "You didn't ask to be brought back. We made that choice. Any trouble that comes from it is our responsibility, not yours." Jake nodded. "Besides, Amy, meeting you has been the best thing that's happened to me in years. You've shown me that the universe is bigger and more wonderful than I ever imagined." Amy's skin brightened to a warm gold color. Jake had learned that this meant happiness or affection, but all three of them knew that their secret couldn't last forever. The late-night work, the borrowed equipment, the unusual power usage. Eventually, someone would notice and ask questions. Amy made a decision that surprised both Jake and Lisa. "When time comes," she said in her improving English, "when others find Amy." Jake speaks for Amy. Jake understands Amy's heart. Lisa felt a moment of hurt. She had been the one to reconstruct Amy, to bring her back to life, but she realized that Amy was right. Jake had been the one to show Amy what humanity could be at its best. He had earned her trust through patience and kindness. "Are you sure, Amy?" Jake asked. "That's a big responsibility." Amy reached out and touched Jake's hand with her long, pale fingers. Jake showed Amy that some humans have good hearts. When others meet Amy, they need to know humans can be good. Jake squeezed her hand gently. "I'll do my best, Amy, I promise." None of them knew that their time was almost up. Security systems had already detected unusual activity in the lab. Questions were being asked. Soon, their secret would be exposed, and Amy would meet the wider human community for the first time. But for now, in the quiet lab on Mars, an alien girl, a janitor, and a scientist sat together as friends, proving that understanding could bridge any gap, even the space between worlds. 6 weeks had passed since Amy's awakening. The secret was getting harder to keep. Amy had grown stronger and more confident, but she still preferred to stay in the lab during the day when other people were around. She came alive in the evening, hours when Jake arrived for his night shift. Jake had become Amy's window into human culture. He brought her books, movies, and music from Earth. He taught her about human history, both the good parts and the bad parts. Amy was fascinated by everything, but she was especially interested in human emotions and relationships. "Jake," Amy said one evening as they sat together in the lab, "humans are very complex." "What do you mean?" Amy's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue-green color. Your people create beautiful art about love and friendship, but your history also shows much violence and hatred. How can one species contain such opposite things? Jake considered her question carefully. I think it's because humans have the ability to choose. We can choose to be kind or cruel, helpful or selfish. Every day we make decisions about what kind of person we want to be. And you choose kindness, Amy said, even when your society does not reward it. Jake looked surprised. What do you mean? Lisa told Amy about human social structure. Scientists, like Lisa, have high status. Military leaders have power. But janitors like Jake are considered unimportant. Yet Jake is wisest human Amy has met. Jake felt his face turn red. Amy, I'm just a regular guy. I clean floors and empty trash cans. Amy's eyes, which had learned to show expression despite being completely black, looked sad. This is human problem Jake does not see. You measure worth by job titles instead of character. In Amy's culture, wisdom comes from understanding others, not from certificates or ranks. Over the following days, Amy shared more about her people, the Valthara. They had been a peaceful species focused on learning and exploration. Their ships traveled between stars not to conquer, but to study and understand the universe. We believed that all consciousness was connected, Amy explained to Jake and Lisa. When we met new species, we tried to learn from them and share what we knew. We thought all intelligent beings would want the same thing. What happened to your ship? Lisa asked gently. Amy's skin turned dark purple. We found something in deep space, ancient technology from a species that disappeared long ago. When we tried to study it, the technology activated. It was a weapon designed to destroy consciousness while preserving the body. But our scientists had modified our genetic structure to store memories and personality. The weapon could not completely destroy us. Jake felt angry at the injustice of it. So your entire people were destroyed by accident? Not destroyed, Amy said firmly. Scattered. Amy can feel quantum echoes from other Valthara. Some survived. Like Amy, they are lost in space waiting to be found. This revelation changed everything. Amy wasn't just the last of her kind. She was potentially the key to reuniting her scattered people. But she would need human help to do it. Amy began working with Lisa on technical projects, sharing Valthara science to help improve the Mars colony. She solved problems with the air recycling system that had puzzled human engineers for months. She showed them how to generate more efficient energy from the planet's magnetic field. She even helped cure a disease that had been spreading among the colonists. But Amy refused to share her most advanced knowledge unless certain conditions were met. She wanted assurance that the technology would be used to help people, not to create weapons. She wanted Jake to be involved in all decisions about how her knowledge was used, and she wanted a promise that humans would help her search for other surviving Valthara. Lisa grew frustrated with Amy's conditions. Amy, you could revolutionize human science. You could help us solve problems that have puzzled us for centuries. Why are you holding back? Amy's skin flashed red. A color Jake had learned meant she was upset. Lisa, Amy has seen what happens when powerful technology falls into wrong hands. Amy's people are gone because of such carelessness. Amy will not make same mistake with humans. Jake understood Amy's position. Lisa, she's being smart. If Amy just gave us everything at once, what do you think would happen? The military would take over. They'd use her knowledge to build weapons. They might even use Amy herself as a weapon. But we could help so many people, Lisa argued. Yes, Amy said, but only if humans prove they can be trusted with such power. Jake has shown Amy that some humans can be trusted. But Amy needs to see this from more humans before sharing dangerous knowledge. The tension between Lisa and Amy worried Jake. He could see both sides of the argument. Lisa wanted to use Amy's knowledge to help humanity advance. Amy wanted to protect her knowledge from being misused. Both had valid points, but neither was willing to compromise. The situation became more complicated when Amy began asking Jake about his own life and dreams. Jake had different job before janitor work? Amy asked one evening. Jake hesitated. He hadn't talked about his past in years. I used to be an engineer. I designed spacecraft engines back on Earth. What happened? Jake was quiet for a long time. Finally, he told Amy about the transport accident that had killed his wife and daughter. He explained how he had blamed himself for not designing better safety systems. He talked about how he had quit his job and taken the janitor position to escape the memories. Amy listened without saying anything. When Jake finished, her skin had turned to a soft, warm gold color that Jake now knew meant deep compassion. Jake carries pain of losing family, Amy said gently. Amy understands this pain. But Jake's knowledge of spacecraft could help Amy find her scattered people. Amy, I'm not an engineer anymore. I haven't done that kind of work in years. Knowledge does not disappear. Jake's understanding of human technology, combined with Amy's knowledge of Valthara science, could create new ways to search for survivors. For the first time since the accident, Jake began thinking about using his engineering skills again, but not for human advancement, to help Amy reconnect with her people. Amy also began teaching Jake about Valthara philosophy and meditation techniques. She showed him how to find peace with painful memories without forgetting the people he had loved. Through Amy's guidance, Jake began to heal from grief that had controlled his life for years. Their friendship deepened into something neither had expected. Amy found in Jake a person who valued wisdom over status, kindness over power. Jake found in Amy someone who saw his true worth despite his humble job. But their growing connection was creating problems. Lisa felt left out of their relationship. She had saved Amy's life, but Amy trusted Jake more. Lisa began to resent Jake's influence over Amy, especially when Amy refused to share certain technologies. The situation reached a breaking point when Lisa discovered that Amy and Jake were secretly working on a project together, a communication device that could potentially contact other Valthara survivors. How could you do this behind my back? Lisa demanded. I brought Amy back to life. I deserve to be part of this. Lisa helped create Amy's body, Amy said calmly. But Jake helped create Amy's trust in humans. Amy needs both science and trust to help her people. Jake tried to mediate between them. Lisa, we weren't trying to exclude you. We just wanted to make sure the project stayed secret until we knew it would work. But Lisa felt betrayed. She threatened to report Amy's existence to the base commander unless she was included in all future projects. Amy's skin turned bright red. Lisa would use Amy's secret as weapon against Jake? I just want to be treated as an equal partner, Lisa said. Then act like equal partner, Amy replied. Equal partners trust each other, they do not threaten. The argument revealed the fundamental difference in how Lisa and Jake saw Amy. Lisa saw her as a scientific discovery to be studied and utilized. Jake saw her as a person to be respected and protected. Amy made her choice clear. If Lisa reports Amy's existence, Amy will tell authorities that Lisa performed illegal experiments without permission. If Jake is harmed because of Lisa's actions, Amy will refuse to cooperate with any humans. The standoff made everyone realize how precarious their situation had become. They were all taking enormous risks, but for different reasons. Lisa wanted scientific glory. Jake wanted to protect Amy. Amy wanted to help her people while staying true to her principles. None of them knew that their argument had been overheard by security sensors. Base Commander Colonel Steve Barnes was already reviewing unusual activity reports from Lisa's lab. Within days, their secret would be exposed whether Lisa reported it or not. The hidden connections between Amy, Jake, and Lisa were about to be tested in ways none of them could imagine. The end came on a Tuesday morning. Colonel Steve Barnes stormed into Lisa's lab with 6 armed security officers. They had detected non-human DNA signatures during a routine security scan. Lisa barely had time to warn Jake through their hidden communication system before the soldiers surrounded the lab. Amy was in her usual hiding spot, a modified storage room that Jake had prepared behind the main lab. She heard the commotion and knew their secret was finally exposed. Her skin shifted through rapid color changes as stress and fear took over. Dr. Kane, Colonel Barnes said in a voice that could cut steel, you are under arrest for conducting unauthorized biological experiments and violating at least 12 colony safety protocols. Lisa stood up straight, trying to maintain her dignity. "Colonel, I can explain everything." "You can explain it at your court-martial," Barnes replied. "But first you're going to show me exactly what you've been working on." The soldiers began, searching the lab systematically. They found the reconstruction equipment, the genetic samples, and the documentation of Amy's creation, but they hadn't found Amy herself yet. That's when Jake walked in for his morning shift. He took one look at the soldiers and the equipment they were examining, and his heart sank. But instead of running or trying to hide, he walked calmly to his supply closet and began preparing his cleaning equipment. "Murphy," Colonel Barnes called out, "have you seen anything unusual in this lab during your cleaning duties?" Jake met the colonel's eyes steadily. "I've seen Dr. Kane working very hard on something important, sir." "Important how?" Before Jake could answer, one of the soldiers called out from the storage room, "Colonel, you need to see this." They had found Amy. Amy emerged from the storage room with her hands visible and empty. Her skin was pale silver. The color Jake had learned meant she was trying to stay calm despite being afraid. The soldiers raised their weapons, but Amy made no threatening moves. The lab fell completely silent. Every person in the room was staring at the first living alien they had ever seen. Amy looked around at all the faces, taking in their expressions of shock, fear, and curiosity. Then her black eyes found Jake, and her skin brightened slightly. "Hello, Jake," she said in her musical voice that made the lab equipment hum softly. Jake stepped forward despite the weapons pointed in Amy's direction. "Hello, Amy. Are you okay?" "Amy is scared," she admitted. "But Amy trusts Jake." Colonel Barnes found his voice. "What in hell is that thing?" Amy's skin flashed red for a moment, the color of anger. "Amy is not thing. Amy is person." Jake moved to stand between Amy and the soldiers. "Colonel, this is Amy. She's the being that Dr. Kane reconstructed from the alien hand sample." "That's impossible," Barnes said. "We sent that sample to the main research facility on Earth." Lisa spoke up from behind the soldiers. "I kept a piece of it. I've been working for months to understand its structure and—" She gestured toward Amy. "To bring her back to life." Barnes stared at Amy, his mind trying to process what he was seeing. "You're telling me this is a living, thinking alien being?" "Amy thinks very well," Amy said, a touch of sarcasm in her musical voice. Amy also understands that Colonel Barnes is deciding whether Amy is threat or opportunity. The directness of Amy's statement caught Barnes off guard. "Can you read minds?" "No, but Amy can read faces and body language. Humans are not as mysterious as humans think." Jake stepped closer to Amy, showing that he wasn't afraid of her. "Colonel, Amy has been helping us solve problems with the colony. She's the reason we fixed the air recycling system last month. She helped develop the cure for the bacterial infection that was spreading through the medical wing." "That was her doing?" Barnes looked from Jake to Amy. "How?" Amy answered for herself. Amy's people had advanced biological science. Amy shared knowledge to help sick humans get better. "Why would you help us?" Amy's skin shifted to a warm gold color. "Because Jake and Lisa helped Amy when Amy was lost and alone. Kindness deserves kindness in return." Barnes holstered his weapon and signaled for his soldiers to lower theirs. "This is unprecedented. We need to contact Earth immediately. The Xenobiology Department, the military command, the colonial government." "No," Amy said firmly. "Excuse me." Amy's skin turned bright red again. "Amy will not be studied like specimen or used like weapon. Amy has seen human history. Amy knows what humans do to things they fear or want to control." "You're not in a position to make demands," Barnes said. "Yes, Amy is." Amy's voice remained calm, but there was steel in it. "Amy possesses knowledge that could advance human science by centuries. Amy also knows location of technology that could revolutionize space travel. But Amy will only share this knowledge under specific conditions." Barnes leaned forward, interested despite himself. "What conditions?" Amy pointed to Jake. "Jake Murphy speaks for Amy in all negotiations. Jake represents Amy's interests to human authorities." Murphy's a janitor, Barnes said dismissively. Amy's skin flashed through several colors rapidly, red, purple, then a bright, almost blinding gold. Jake Murphy is wisest human Amy has met. Jake sees Amy as person, not as tool. Jake understands honor and loyalty. If humans cannot respect Amy's choice of representative, then humans are not ready for Amy's knowledge. Jake felt overwhelmed. Amy, I'm not qualified for something like this. Amy touched his arm gently. Jake helped Amy learn to trust humans again. Jake showed Amy that humans can be good. Now Jake must show other humans how to be good to Amy. Colonel Barnes looked around the lab, trying to figure out how to handle the situation. He had protocols for dealing with alien artifacts and technology, but he had no protocols for dealing with a living, intelligent alien who was making demands and choosing her own advocates. Lisa watched the exchange with mixed feelings. She was proud that her work had been successful beyond her wildest dreams, but she was also hurt that Amy trusted Jake more than her. Amy seemed to sense Lisa's feelings. Dr. Kane, she said gently, Amy is grateful for new life. But life is more than just body and brain. Jake gave Amy reasons to want this new life. Jake took a deep breath and made his decision. Colonel, Amy is right about me not being qualified for negotiations, but I am qualified to tell you what kind of person she is. She's intelligent, compassionate, and honest. She's been nothing but helpful since the moment she woke up. If we treat her like a prisoner or a weapon, we'll lose the greatest opportunity in human history. Amy's skin brightened to that warm gold color again. Jake understands. Amy offers humans partnership, not servitude. Amy will help humans advance, but only if humans prove they can advance with wisdom. Colonel Barnes realized he was facing a decision that would affect all of humanity's future. He could try to force Amy to cooperate, but she had already shown she wouldn't respond well to threats. He could follow standard protocols and send her to Earth for study, but she had made it clear she would resist. Or he could try something unprecedented, treating an alien being as an equal partner in humanity's future. What exactly are you proposing? Barnes asked Amy. Amy proposes cultural exchange program. Amy teaches humans about Velthera science and philosophy. Humans teach Amy about human culture and help Amy search for surviving Velthera. Jake acts as Amy's advocate to ensure fair treatment. And if we agree to this arrangement? Amy's skin shifted to a soft blue color that Jake recognized as hope. Amy shows humans how to travel between stars without destroying environments. Amy shows humans how to heal diseases that human medicine cannot cure. Amy shows humans how to live in peace with other species they will meet among the stars. Jake looked at Colonel Barnes. Sir, I know this is unusual, but Amy is offering us everything we've ever dreamed of as a species. All she wants in return is to be treated with respect and to have her voice heard. Barnes was quiet for a long time, weighing his options. Finally, he made his decision. Dr. Kane, you're still facing charges for unauthorized experiments, but given the success of your work, those charges will be reduced. Murphy? Barnes looked at Jake with new respect. It seems you're about to become the most important janitor in human history. Amy's skin brightened to brilliant gold. Colonel Barnes chooses wisdom. Amy is grateful. Over the following weeks, Amy began working with human scientists and officials, always with Jake at her side as her advocate and translator of human culture. She shared technologies that revolutionized medicine, energy production, and space travel. She taught human philosophers new ways of thinking about consciousness and cooperation. But most importantly, she helped humans take their first steps toward becoming the kind of species that could travel among the stars without destroying everything they touched. And through it all, Jake Murphy, former engineer, former janitor, now humanity's first alien ambassador, proved that the most important qualifications for representing humanity weren't titles or degrees, but kindness, wisdom, and the courage to see others as equals, regardless of how different they might appear. Amy had been right all along. The future belonged not to the strongest or the smartest, but to those who chose compassion over fear, partnership over domination, and understanding over prejudice. The alien girl, reconstructed from just a hand, had found exactly the right human to show her, and eventually the galaxy, what humanity could become at its very best.